Okay, today we're doing a really simple project. It could even be a no-sew project, depending on how you choose to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it sewing at the sewing machine, but it's very basic, as in the most basic, very beginner type project. And if you're an advanced sewist, this is going to be so quick and easy. We're going to make buntings, which are the little flags that flags on a string that you see at holiday times, and we're going to make a Christmas one because it's Christmas time when we're sewing this up. But I would like to tell you that, and I'm sure I say this again in the cutting, but if you wanted to make it reversible, you can cut out 2 layers. So one side is like Christmas and the other side is Halloween, or you have a Halloween and an Easter, something like that, so that you can actually have double duty for your bunting and flip it around. I'm just lining mine, so mine's going to be Christmas on both sides, and you could even do it unlined for one of the versions. We're making 2 buntings today. So I'm going to show you the basic cutting out, and then we'll be back in here to put it all together. I'm going to add some cute fun things to mine. So I will have flags, but you can also add things like pom-poms or even some little snowflakes. So I'm going to be adding some of this into my 2 buntings that I'm going to be making today. One's going to be a large bunting and the other one's going to be a little tiny one. So let's go cut them out, and then I'll show you the basics of sewing up. When I bought all of this fun Christmas fabric, I knew I was going to make stockings, but I bought a full yard or more of each so that I have extras for doing other little fun projects. So see this little scrap here, for instance, this is left over from the stocking. I'm going to do buntings today. I'm going to do a large bunting and a small bunting. And all I did was draw out my triangles on graph paper. So for this one, for the large bunting, I'm able to get 3 triangle pattern pieces. And this one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pattern pieces for that. And it doesn't really matter. It's just getting the size triangle you want. If you're cutting your bunting pretty much all out of 1 or 2 fabrics, you could easily trace this off and cut a lot at once, or stack and cut like we did with our stockings. But I'm just going to cut some triangles out of all of these scraps, and I'm lining mine. So I want 2 layers. This will be my lining side. I will have a few that this will show on the right side also. But I'm just going to cut out a bunch of triangles real quick. I'm just layering and cutting, making sure that I have the direction of the fabric right so I don't get an upside down triangle. This one, I'm going to have 1. This is going to be my lining for all of them, but I'm going to cut 1 out of this, and I want to cut 1 out of this, but I want to arrange it so that I get the houses where I want it, so I'm not going to layer and cut it. And then I have this scrap that I'm going to cut all these out of. So in the end, I should have, I believe, 10 flags that are different in this large size. So that's what I'm going to start with and see if I want to add more or not after that. Now this fabric I am going to use for the lining, and it's not directional, which means that I can lay out my pieces like this and stagger them, and I can cut all the way across. I'm going to need 12 of these, 10 for lining the other pieces and 1 for lining itself. I think I did the math right on that. So I'm going to kind of just draw out this triangle right across here and just cut those out really quickly, and I'll have this big one cut. If you wanted to have double use out of your bunting, like one side could be the Christmas fabric and the other side could be Halloween or Easter or something like that, and all you do is flip the bunting over and you have another design, or use a gingham check on one side and a holiday on the other, and it would give you double use out of your little bunting. I'm going to be putting my buntings together with bias. This, and you may remember this from when I made the beautiful little bed jacket. This is a single fold bias that I'm going to turn into double fold so that it'll only be a 1/4 inch thick, like so, when I'm done. So this is what I'm going to use. And what I've done, I've already started without you. So let me show you some of the things that we're going to do. On the little bunting, we're going to start with the little one. This is how the pieces look when we cut them out. And I am just sewing together just a basic little stitch like this. So we're just sewing on 2 sides. I didn't even sew the top because that's what's going to get caught in the bias. So I've just sewn 2 sides, lined or reversible. You could do this without lining it. This particular one, because I put wrong sides together, so I have raw edges right now, because I'm choosing, once I've done that, I'm coming in and pinking I'm using little pinking shears and just pinking that edge. So I'm going to have little pinked edged little flags. So I've got a bunch of them already done. So I have a whole bunch of these triangles sewn and lined that I'm going to now just pink the edge. If you aren't familiar with pinking, it's scissors like this. See, can you see the zigzag on them? You can even get them that are wavy, like there's more than just the zigzag. Zigzag's very traditional. And all I'm doing is coming in and cutting off just that outer edge. You don't want to get your stitching where you've sewn it together. You want to be outside of that. And we're just pinking that off. Boop. And then we have cute little zigzaggedy edge. So we're doing that on all of these little ones. And then I'm going to, in between those, I've bought, these are just plain little pom-poms, and I've taken, in this case it's sashiko thread, but you could use just regular embroidery thread. Okay, I'm going to show you really quickly how I made the little pom-poms on a string. Just going to put a knot down here like this, and then I'm going to grab one of my little pom-poms and feed it on. Boop. And then I'm going to come up here and tie a knot. And you can see it's got a little thread hanging down, which I'll trim up in a minute. So I'm just going to tie up a little knot, and I hold the knot with my thumb where I want it to be so it doesn't they don't end up too far apart. And then feed on the next one. And I'm using, this is sashiko thread, but you could use embroidery floss. And feed it on my last one to my knot. And then I'm going to come up quite a bit higher and tie another knot, and this is for where my where it's going to get caught when I'm sewing it in. And now I'm ready to cut it off, and I have my little pom-poms on a string. So for the little bunting, I just have singles like this, and I have little single snowflake, these little things. Now I got these at Hobby Lobby, and they have like a whole area of miniature decorations for like mini trees, and that's where I got these little snowflakes. That's also where I got these bigger snowflakes, which I'm going to use on the other one. So I'm going to put a few of these in there, so it's going to have not only flags, but a few pom-poms and a few snowflakes. So that's what we're going to do for the little bunting. Once we get those done, like this, we're going to just take our bias. Here's the thing that's up to you. The buntings can be touching, where they're really close, like this. They can even be slightly overlapping. It depends on how full you want it, or they can be spaced out. I'm going to space mine out. There's no rule. I looked. There's no rule. And then I'm going to take my little pom-poms. I got to find the ones that are singles. And I'm going to put like flag, pom-pom, flag, snowflake, like that. And I'm just going to line them up. Now you could easily do this on a ribbon and zigzag this to a ribbon, but we're going to just line them up on our little ribbons like this. Make sure when you're doing it that you leave a tail. I'm going to leave a long tail because you don't know how you're going to tie it, how are you going to attach it when you go to hang it. So you want to leave a long enough tail for attaching. So I'm going to go like this. I'm lining it up, and then I'm just folding it over just like so, and I'm just going to stitch it. So I'm going to pin one of these on, and then I'm going to go over a couple of inches, put a pom-pom, put another one, put a snowflake, and I'm just going to line them up, straight stitch it down on the machine. So I'll see you over at the machine after I get these kind of pinned together, and you can see how easily this is going together. So here I'm starting to pin it together. Here's my tail, and it'll just get folded over and straight stitched. And here we go. Can you see? It's a little hard to see all the little things. This one's flipped up. Little snowflake. So we're just putting them in, and this will be our tiny little bunting. So this is how I'm just stitching it through. Because I'm stitching such a narrow thing right now, there's only one little tiny feed dog in the back that's feeding through, so you may have to help a little bit. Not really pull it, but just hang on to it so that it feeds, because you can see the feed dogs aren't kind of on each side of the little piece of bias right now, but when we get down to this, it'll feed a lot better. So here's number one, teeny tiny little, isn't that cute? And the thing I like, because I lined it, I could have the back side all showing, or I can have this side which has multicolors. I'm gonna keep that as, and you can make it as long as you want, just make it appropriate for your space. So there is one super simple little cute bunting. I love it. Now, of course, you could do all flags. You don't have to have the little dangles in between like I did, but I personally really like it. And if you're doing a theme, if you're doing a Halloween bunting, you could have little jack-o'-lanterns or candy corns or other things. You could make little candy corn shaped flags. Like the thing about this sort of thing is you can get as creative as you want with it. You can also make them perfect for your space, so you can make them exactly the length that you need. I'm making little short ones because these are going to go into my advent calendar that I'm working on. And I'm not sure what order these are going up in. So either I'll link the advent calendar up here if I've already done it. If not, it'll show up the next week when it's up. Or this may be linked in the advent calendar. I'm not sure. I forget what order the videos are going up. All right, we're going to work on the big one now. So for the big one, and you saw over at the cutting table, we cut great big pieces like this, and I'm lining each one. So this time I'm doing right sides together, and again I've just sewn on the outer edge 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to come in and trim just along here this little point, because I want to have a nice point when I turn this. So I'm actually going to trim out my point real quick, and then this one's going to take longer because we're cutting, turning, trimming, sewing, all of the things, so, and pressing. So now I'm going to flip this around, and because this is such a tight point, if you have something like one of these to help push the little point back through, I'm going to just flip this around and put this down on the inside to get our little point out, and then I'm going to press all of these, and now we have this size flag. Now, you may want giant ones. Like I didn't go real big, and that's just personal preference, but this is what one side looks like and this is the other. And I did line them all. After I get all of those cut, I have a little bit bigger snowflakes that I'm going to use with this one. And then I made longer little pom-poms. So I have some that are 2 long and some that are 3 long. Aren't those cute? And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to just sandwich it in the bias tape and sew it up. Now, let me just stop right here and say, if you want to make cute little buntings and you don't want to do all of the sewing, get scrapbook paper. It comes in every color and in glitter and everything else. You can just cut them out. You can use pinking shears if you want to. It will glue great too. You can get the right kind of glue great to a piece of ribbon. You can even sew through the scrapbook paper if you set it really wide. You can sew through it into ribbon if you want to sew paper onto ribbon. So that's another option. And you can line it. So you can glue one piece to another, line it, and make it reversible too. It's not going to be as long lasting as durable. You have to be a little more careful with your scrapbook paper, but you can even, I will say, back it with like cardstock or something else to make it firmer. So you have that option, and then you just glue it all together, and it'll be just as cute and easy. And again, you can even hot glue or glue on these sort of things. Putting this in my bias, I make sure that the knot is just up higher so that once it's stitched through, if it gets pulled down, that knot will hit the stitching and it won't pull these out. Now you could 100% come back later and hand stitch these too if you want something like this. You could hand stitch those back in later if you wanted to. At your serger, set your serger for a rolled hem, and you could roll hem the outside of these, and then you could have, it almost would look like a piping. You could do a glitter or a woolly nylon or something like that, and then you could have these outlined. It would just make them pop a little bit more if you wanted to do something like that. You could also put piping in there, sandwich piping, and sew it, hang a little pom-pom off the bottom of each of these if you wanted to, which would be really cute like that. You can get as creative as you want with this sort of project. You start with something basic and then zhuzh it up as much as you want to. Okay, back in a minute with this all sewn up. I'm just laying these out to get the colors I like next to each other, and I think this is how I like it. So I'm actually just going to stack them in order like so, and then I'm going to head to the machine and start sandwiching these in the bias and fitting in between container here of fun little hangy down pom-poms and snowflakes.